make a mistake.
100%. Yeah, and that affects.
We're getting ready to start our meeting, so I want to welcome you to the August 20th, 2024 meeting of the Greensboro City Council. We're in the Katie Dorset Council Chamber. Let the record reflect that the mayor is on Zoom and we have one council member absent. I think Zach Matheny is coming. I haven't heard he's not. So Hugh Holston is going to be out, so I will need a motion to excuse Hugh.
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and second. All in favor say aye. Aye.
Hi.
Madam Mayor, are you online? Are you on Zoom?
Yes, I am, ma'am.
Thank you. Okay, Zach is here. We will begin this meeting with a moment of silence. Thank you. We have a young man from Boy Scout Troop 118, Abbott Ventris. Would you come forward and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, Abbott? I would appreciate that. Mr. Manager, would you recognize our youth courier?
I would be more than happy to. So our courier this evening is Adriana Ramirez. Adriana has actually been the summer intern for the city manager's office. She is a rising senior at UNCG studying political science and pre-law. Adriana is a dog mom to one, a lovable German Shepherd Husky mix. She's a former Marine and a first-generation daughter with her parents coming to us from Acapulco, Mexico. Adriana played rugby at UNCG and amazingly has never broken any bones. Thank you for being here, Adriana.
Thank you. We have with us members of the Church World Service of Greensboro, and they have been touring City Hall. Where are you? Are you here?
Madam Mayor Pro Tem, I don't think they have made it back from their dinner.
We'll introduce them when they come back. I'd like for you to please silence all electronic devices. If you must make or receive a phone call, we'll ask for you to go outside the chamber and do so. The Greensboro City Council welcomes residents' input. It is important for all attendees to feel that the Katie Dorset Council Chamber is a welcoming and safe place where residents feel empowered to bring issues or concerns before their elected officials. The City of Greensboro is committed to promoting an environment that is free of discrimination, bias, and bullying. Therefore, speakers shall refrain from personal attacks. The presiding officer has the authority to enforce the rules of decorum. Speaker or audience members who intentionally disrupt the meeting or ridicule other speakers will be given a warning, and if not heeded, they will be removed from the meeting. Let's just hope that that doesn't happen, but that would be nice not to have that happen. But you will be removed if it happens. That person or persons will be suspended from in-person participation for the next 3 months, but in order to preserve their right to free speech, they may attend virtually or by Zoom, by phone, or may submit comments by way of mail. Individuals may sign up to speak to specific concerns or business agenda items. The subject will be noted, and if it requires action, the city clerk will note as such and provide steps for any required response or after action. Speakers must be signed up to speak by 6 p.m. Any speaker who has handouts must give them to the city clerk or courier so that they can be given to us. Speakers are allotted 3 minutes to speak and can speak once on an agenda item. Depending on the number of speakers, City Council may decrease the time allocation. Speakers may not relinquish their time to other speakers. The order in which speakers are called is at the discretion of the mayor or the presiding officer. Zoning matters do allow for a 15-minute presentation, both for and against the zoning. There is also a 5-minute rebuttal period for each side, pro and con. By statute, council members must vote on all items unless there is a direct financial interest or if they sit on a board of a nonprofit receiving funding from the city. All votes will be moved and second. The presiding officer will announce the vote total. We have a consent agenda for items G1 through G21, which are a grouping of agenda items that are voted on with one single vote to expedite what we believe may be routine and non-controversial items. However, any council member may withdraw any item from the consent agenda due to a conflict of interest or for the purpose of voting no. Items removed from the consent agenda for discussion will be placed on the September 17th City Council business agenda. This meeting does include closed caption. So lastly, depending on the length of tonight's meeting, we may take a short recess around 7:30. Now is the time for consideration of the consent agenda. Are there any council people who may want to withdraw an item from the consent agenda?
Well, I have a couple of questions on one. So I have a couple questions on G1 and G9.
G1 and G9. Okay. I'm going to ask you to hold your question. We can approve the others, and then we'll come back to your questions. Yes.
I agree with Councilwoman Hightower on G1. I have had a question. I don't think that was answered on G2. I haven't seen an answer. In G17, I had a question.
G17. Okay, so we have G1, G2, G9, and G17. Any others? Other than those numbers? You move it?
Madam Mayor Pro Tem, if we remove those, then we automatically have to put them at another council meeting. But if they have a simple question, could that be answered?
We're going to come back to
Okay.
the questions, and if the question can be answered, we can approve it.
Exactly, and that's what we have done previous time.
Okay, thank
All
you.
right. Is there a second? Okay, it's been moved and second, moved by Dr. Goldie Wells, second by Councilwoman Tammy Thurm. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay. So those are moved except for G1. I'll come to you, Sharon, on G1.
So, I guess my main question, with, resolution to approve the contract in the amount of $330,000 with Planning Communities, LLC. I had two questions. What is the dollar threshold that puts it on consent?
Traditionally, that's been under $1 million
It's under $1 million.
and
Okay.
considered non-controversial.
Considered non-controversial, okay. And so, okay. Then my second question, thank you, and that helps me a little bit. My second question is an MWBE question, and I looked here, and I'm trying to understand why there's a non-MWBE percentage here, when there is a WBE who got the contract, and so, but apparently, I think this is the one that had the non-MWBE. I think
You're correct. It is. They subbed.
Yeah,
They're
that's the one,
proposing to sub 36% to a non-MWBE vendor. The WBE is the prime.
Say that again, Chris, I'm sorry.
The WBE is the prime vendor, and the 36% that they're subcontracting is to non-MWBE vendors.
Right, and I had asked this question, I never really did get a clear answer on this, so I'd already asked this question.
You're used to seeing this the other way around.
Right.
You're used to seeing a non-MWBE prime subcontracting out, and we capture what percent of their subs are going to M's or W's. This is just a unique situation where the prime is actually an MWBE firm. They are they're doing the majority of the work. I think it's 64% of the work is going to be done by the prime, but they're subcontracting out some of that work, and we wanted to be transparent that that portion that they're subcontracting is going to a non-MWBE firm or firms.
Right, and
So
there
we-
is a percentage that when you start subbing it out to nons, that invalidates MWBE, period. So I just want to make sure we haven't crossed that threshold. And that has been a legal issue. But once you start subbing out to nons, then you're no longer doing it as an MWBE.
Right. Well, this
So-
as a services contract, did not have an MWBE goal on it to begin with, so we don't have to compare to any initial goals. This was just simply the firm that won the bid happened to be an MWBE firm, but we wanted to be clear. We didn't want to just say, well, it's an MWBE firm, that's 100%. No, we're subcontracting out some of that work to non-MWBE firms. So if you look at the report at the end of the agenda, you'll see MWBE participation 64%.
Right, and I get that. I know there's no goals here, but there's still a threshold when you start subbing out to non-MWBEs, that it no longer becomes where the MWBE is a prime. And that has happened a couple years ago, Chuck. Was that not an issue we ran into, if you recall? Yes. Okay, so there is a threshold. And that's something that needs to be looked into, and I'd like to ensure that that is. So
We'll confirm that.
can we pull it till you can confirm it? Can I get it pulled then?
Dr. Dorsett's here. I'd like to let her speak on the specifics of the grant.
I mean, I don't know if she needs it right away.
So in the instance that you pointed to before, there was a MWBE prime that wanted to take credit and wanted us to count the points towards our NWB numbers. Clearly, our program is not a prime program; it's a sub program, and we
Correct.
don't do that. This doesn't involve any MWBE points, so it seems to be
It's not points, and that wasn't even the case then. That was a situation where the person was a prime, but they subbed out the majority of the work to a non, which means you no longer are the MWBE. Same scenario here.
No, you're
Planning
correct.
community is a W.
No, you're correct. In the prior instance, the question was how much of that subbing out. Did he sub the whole thing out or not? And we had to do with it 50% being a presumption of that you're not providing a commercially significant service, et cetera, et cetera. But all I'm saying is in this instance, I don't think we even engaged in an MWBE discussion. There were no goals set.
No, it's not goal set. I'm still asking the question, and I think we need to be clear. I'm going to try not to belabor the point because I want.
Okay.
I understand Ms. Dorsett is here to answer, her concern about her contract. But what I'm saying is, we keep going through this stuff, and it's like some of these issues are not ironed out before they get here. And I did ask the question earlier on, and did not really get any kind of clarification.
I'm sorry. If you didn't get an answer, you should have. I didn't receive that. I did respond to Councilman Mathaney's questions, but I didn't see that as part of it. So I apologize if you did not get an answer.
So you want to put this for this month and put it off for next month?
Well, or next meeting, if we can get some clarification, but if Ms. Dorsett needs it for her planning communities, I don't want to.
Yeah, I would.
Impede
I would
her
defer
process.
to Dr. Dorsant
And
to see
so,
if we have a
Dorsant,
timeline.
I'm sorry, I don't want to impede her process.
Yeah,
So I just want to make
Dr. Dorsant, I don't know from a timeline perspective.
yeah.
I know we're working from a grant that we received, and I don't know if there's a timeline.
Yeah, I don't want to mess with her.
No, but
you're-
I
no.
appreciate the question. I followed Assistant City Manager Larry Davis and Interim City Manager Chris Wilson's point as far as the prime being the MWBE. They're the WBE firm, and then they're just subbing out the 36%. So I'm not aware of a threshold. I understand having that WBE presence, but they're the prime.
You wouldn't, you shouldn't know that, okay? That's not for you to know.
Yeah. So, Councilman Hattari, again, I did appreciate the question. I did respond to what I thought was your questions. But hearing the discussion now, I understand what your dilemmas are. In this case, we provided the standard information to the primes that were bidding on this project for subcontracting opportunities. So they could have chose to do the full project self-performing, but they seeked out other resources, and in this case, they used a non. And I did look through the plan to determine if there's a threshold. I did not see anything, so I'll go back and look closer, but I'm not aware of any threshold that we have in our plan.
Okay.
And as far as the timeline, we have not had any kickoff. It's just that this is part of the grant from the Arbor Day Foundation through, so everything, it was supposed, we got you all approved it back in March.
Right.
Accepted the grant funding, but everything's been pushed. So, yeah, willing to provide any other answers to your questions to get it approved, hopefully.
That's fine. I
Is
appreciate
that satisfactory, Sharon?
I'm just going to let it go at this point. I'm just tired of going down the same road. It has nothing to do with you.
Well, no, but I understand.
And so I don't want to belabor what she's trying to get done.
Do you want to move this item?
I think Zach's got a question on it too first, though.
Okay.
That's why.
I didn't hear you.
Did I miss something? When did we get this?
It was on March 5th. It was at the March 5th City Council meeting.
I must have been out.
And it was unanimous. I can't recall if you were here.
I must have been out.
that night or not.
It just would have been, I guess, did I miss it in the weekly updates or whatnot? Because this is something, it seems like on a contract basis like this, it just seems like it would have been nice to have a presentation about it, understanding, because people in Greensboro care about trees. That was having just gone through a contract. When I see a contract just flip through consent agenda, it caught my attention.
Okay.
Understood. I thought
Yeah.
that might be the question. So in my response, what I had indicated is if council approves, we did put some things in about the grant, but to your point, there's such an interest in what could occur with this once we have a schedule put together and what the kickoff looks like, and there's going to be an input opportunity. We'll bring that back to you all. And I had suggested either in a work session or otherwise.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Second.
Did you have okay.
I was just going to thank Dr. Doris and your office for going after these grants that are going to help us in so many ways, and figuring out our tree canopy, what we need to do, what we need to perhaps not do, and bringing the non-native trees in the area. I think that's huge. So I just want to add that on there to show that a lot of these grants and things may be coming in, and they're doing a really good job of trying to get those for the city of Greensboro, so we can use federal funds that way. So thank you.
Okay, we're
Mary
ready
Kay,
to vote.
Mayor Pro Tem, I'm sorry. Mary Kay, you said something. Hold on, Miss. Where's that coming? You said something that kind of triggered my mind with this item. How are we incorporating using native plants and trees into these things? Because there's some building going on where this is not happening, and we need to stop what is going on and fix it.
Yes.
We're starting out with the city making sure that we plant native.
But that's not happening, understand what I'm saying to you.
On city property?
There's some building going on right now. That's not where that's happening.
We've been
How do we
contacted.
incorporate that?
Correct. And
Yeah.
we've been contacted, I think, since March 5th as far as expanding on that native
Right.
plant policy. So we're currently working, we've been asked, about certain projects, maybe not all of them, to your point, but we're definitely being consulted more, and we're working with Parks and Recreation with this as well.
So can I ask planning, not you, planning department, because there's some building going on right now, and it's not native plants. And I had this conversation recently because there was some stuff hanging in the middle of McConnell Road, and I said, is that native stuff? And it's not. So if that's the case and we support it, we did a resolution around it, and I think we should. We need to be informing all our partners what is expected of them as they're planting trees, shrubbery, or whatever.
And I do feel that with this grant opportunity and working with, the consultant and Parks and Recreation and Planning and others, because they were a part of the committee that actually selected the consultant, I feel like this will be a great way of pushing this native plant policy even more.
Yeah.
We're working on what those workshops look like. How can we meet in, East Greensboro, Districts 1 and 2, in that crescent disadvantaged community to plant native trees.
Right, yeah, and I'd love for us to have more about that too.
Yeah,
'Cause,
and
yeah.
so I'll definitely
And
get the proposal over for you, and if you all have any other questions, I'll definitely provide a timely response.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Councilperson
All right,
Hightower.
we're getting
can I-
ready to
Yeah.
vote.
Can I answer your question directly? So, to your point, you may recall I sent a notice out after that adoption to all of the organization. If there was a contract that was let post that adoption, it is to include native plants. If it was prior to that, that's a different story because I can't impose that retrospectively. But all projects are to include native plants. So if you know of one, I'm happy to, and please send it to me. I'll check and see when the contract was let, and we can work with the contractor.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's been moved by Tammy, seconded by Ms. Hightower. Okay, Madam Mayor, what's your vote?
Yes.
All right. The rest of your vote? Okay.
That passes 9-0.
The vote is 8-0.
Excuse me, 8-1.
All right.
I'm sorry, I forgot Councilmember Holston was not here
8-0?
8-0.
8-1.
because he's absent.
We excused him.
We excused him, so it's 8-0.
I will correct that.
Okay, G2 is a resolution to request transfer of lots to the Greensboro Housing Development Partnership, Inc. I think Zach had concerns about that.
Thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. And Chris, I see your response. Couple things that just concern me, and I get the strategy behind what we're doing, right? But one of the things is these 4 lots came under the ownership of the Redevelopment Commission in 2012. So it took us 12 years to figure out that we needed to market them and sell them and encourage folks to develop them. I think one of the bigger concerns I have too is the Redevelopment Commission as a whole and how what's the strategy? When we talk about housing, and we talk about housing every meeting, I haven't heard any true plan of what the Redevelopment Commission is doing and the strategies in which to encourage folks to invest appropriately. We have land in the south end that's in the Business Improvement District that has been empty for close to 20 years. There's not one sign that says property available. I mean, so I think the lack of communication coming out of redevelopment, the lack of strategy in general, and we'll talk further about that as we get to another item, but we talk about housing. We've had how many $1 million worth of bond funds allocated towards housing?
At least 20.
I think it's more like 40 to 60.
It may be.
So what's our strategy on housing as a whole, whether it's single family, multifamily, affordable, low income, LIHTC, however you want to do it? And that's why I sent an email saying, I would love to have a work session. And I think we need to do better about our work sessions to make sure they're worth showing up to and actually having tangibility of substance in a work session. And housing being a priority, I think having a work session with redevelopment and planning is entirely appropriate sooner rather than later. I'm not going to block this. I'm not going to pull it. But we need more information and strategy because we don't have it.
I agree. You had sent a note earlier today, and I was giving everybody a chance before I responded, but I would certainly support a work session. I think not only the discussion about redevelopment, but it could help inform how we handle other properties that we have available as well. So, yeah, we'll put that together. I agree with you. I think Councilperson Hightower had agreed as well. So,
I do, and thank you. Let me make sure. I'm glad you pulled it because I almost had slipped and forgot to pull it. I currently serve on the Greensboro Housing Development Partnership Board. So we see a lot of these lots that come over from redevelopment because we put them in a program and a plan to try to get them marketed and get them out. And I think we have to be very intentional about some of this. These lots have sat for years at redevelopment, still got them. Primarily, they're in the east. That's generally what the only place they are is the east, from redevelopment to Greensboro Housing Development Partnership. So you're right. There has to be some intentional plans to develop some of these lots and get housing built. We have done some of that. We did a intentional outreach in January and February to minority developers, particularly in the old Ashboro and the Willow Oaks area. And we had a great turnout. We've generated the interest. I think we don't do a good job of marketing ourselves, though. Our websites are not friendly to use, and I've said this before. They should be consolidated so that if I'm looking for real estate, I don't have to go to 5 different departments. You know, engineering's got some, GHDP's got some, redevelopment's got some, neighborhood development's got some. They all need to be in one centralized location so that as I'm looking to see what's available to develop, I find it in one space. And then I will know what the resources are that go along with that. And that's been a big, huge question. And so I think there's some improvements we do have to do about this, because I'm tired of redevelopment lots sitting in East Greensboro and not, no one know about them. And we continue to ride by them and they're vacant. But I will say there's been some movement. Even in redevelopment, Mr. Matheny, if you drive down English Street, there are 3 lots there that are 3 houses. 2 of them are up, 1 of them is coming. It came out of redevelopment. So there is some movement. Willow Oaks, there is some movement. So and some of those lots are redevelopment, some of those lots are GHDP. But there's been movement. So if you see, I understand your concern, and I do still have that concern. I just think we have to be more intentional about it. With that being said, is there money being handled with this, Mr. City Attorney? Am I okay to vote on this item?
We talked about this, and I think you should recuse yourself.
Okay. Because I am.
It's a contract with a nonprofit that you have an association.
Right, because I serve on the GHDP board, then I will request to recuse myself from this item.
Motion to recuse, Councilwoman Hightower.
Well, you're not making any money off of this, I hope. If so,
I'm
lend
going
me
back.
$1.
I'm not getting a dime, but because I guess contract negotiations, and so just because of the way the policy is written, I just wanted.
This is the criminal statute that was passed in late 2022 that attempts to make it that makes it a criminal offense to participate in any decision or to provide any contract to a nonprofit with whom you have an association. Key word being association.
Okay.
It's hard to know exactly how far that goes, but certainly if you're on the board, you'd be associated.
Right. And I don't want that association.
It's been moved by Councilwoman Thurm. Yeah.
The legislation doesn't require us to vote on the recusal. In this case, Sharon just has to state her reason for recusing, and that's enough.
Right.
The mayor's correct.
She did.
I did.
You're free at last.
Thank you. Thank God.
All right.
Almighty.
Councilwoman Thurm moved G2, and Dr. Goldie-Well second. So council will vote. Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Thank you. And that passes 7 to 0. Excuse me, 7 to 0. All right, the next is G9, is a resolution approving change order number 2 to contract 2020-0200 with Cajun Construction and Rehabilitation Services, Inc. in the amount of $500,000.
I would just like to make a comment on this one.
Okay.
Well, I will vote for it because I know the work has already been done, but this particular project really, I think, needs to be looked at a little bit closer. I believe it is the water and sewer improvements that went along Sunset from Battleground to Elm Street. That took well over a year, maybe close to 2 years. I do know they ran into some granite, which prolonged it a little bit, but when people talk about projects going in the wrong direction, this definitely was one of them. And that street, those neighbors and the neighborhood surrounding them had really been inconvenienced for roughly 2 years. I will say that city staff did a great job reaching out to the neighborhood, letting them know what the status of the project was, which I think made it much more bearable. So I'll vote for it, but begrudgingly.
Ms. Hoffman, did you have some comments on this? Okay, is there a motion?
I-
Oh, what do you want to do with this?
Well,
Sharon?
we can move forward with it. I just had a concern. It's another MWB concern. I think what really concerns me is that change orders keep coming on these projects. And when the change orders happen, the MWB goals decrease. So the opportunities are less and less every time these change orders keep happening. And I just wonder what we can do to put in place to ensure change orders don't continue to happen in this manner. Yes, if there's some emergency repairs, things that need to happen, sometimes that does happen. But I wonder how we can build in what we're proposing, because as we look at a goal, and this goal was 9% initially, but every time you had a change order, and this is change order number 2, those goals decreased every time. So it's using those subs less and less every time. And I personally have a problem with that. Yes, the goals are great. They initially were met, more or less, but they continue to drop every time. And I'd like for us to look at that a little bit more closely. And maybe we can build that
I
into
suggest you
our
work
plan.
with the manager and our city attorney to do that, Sharon.
Yes, ma'am.
And if they can come up with something, we can come up with an ordinance for that.
I agree. Thank you.
All right, we're
Thank
going to
you.
vote on this. It's been moved in second. Madam Mayor?
Yes.
And that passes 8-0. And the last is G17 is resolution granting a permanent access easement to Helsman Homes LLC on city-owned property located at 1903 Eastgate City Boulevard. I think that was you, Zach.
Yes, yes, ma'am. Chris, I see your response here about maintaining the site. You know, there's a house being constructed, 926 Hackett Street, that not include off-site parking that was on their pipe. So this easement resolves the access parking issue and allows the home to be completed. So if that's the case, why are we giving them a permanent easement? Because if they got a permanent easement, and if we're wanting to stack, for an example, for Gate City, if we need to resurface, since they have a permanent easement, we can't use the property because it's their permanent easement. Why don't we sell them the property or give it to them? Because if we don't have access to it anymore through a permanent easement, what's the point? I mean, if it was a 100-year easement or a 50-year easement like the railroad does and things like that, that makes sense to me. But if you've got a permanent easement and that helps the house get built and has parking, then it has zero use to the city of Greensboro.
So, Zach, can I give you some content on that?
Sure.
So,
By the way,
this,
Councilwoman Hightower educated me. This is the second time today that I'm depending on Councilwoman Hightower to educate me because I hadn't heard anything.
Sure, and I apologize that you didn't get to see
Sorry.
that. This is a unique situation, so you go ahead because you actually brought it to our attention.
So actually, I drive up and down Gate City Boulevard every single day of my life. I'm going into town. And that house is already built. I watched that house, and I kept saying, there's something wrong. That house is sitting almost on a mountain. It is scary. There is no front access to that home at all. If you put stairs there, they're going to have to go up like this to get into the house. And so the only way to get there was the back of the property from Gate City Boulevard, one of the busiest thoroughfares in this city. And I watched it repeatedly and called engineer every day saying, how are you allowing them to get into that property from Gate City Boulevard? until somebody finally heard me, looked at the plan and said, no, they're supposed to access it from Hackett Street. I said, there's absolutely no way. Hackett Street is a narrow street on the way to 29 with tractor trailers coming around that corner, because I've had to stop and let a tractor trailer go before we can go. So that's going to be dangerous. Then we realized that they were accessing that house from Gate City. They had created their own driveway back up there. You see it? It's very dangerous. And so in revealing all of that, so yeah, I'm the culprit again, but in revealing all of that, Hannah, Ms. Cochran felt it was best just to get that easement, because actually that was our property they were really crossing to get to that house. It was not even their property, but they had created an access. And they built the whole house, and nobody caught it but me.
So additionally, retaining the ownership allows us to make future improvements that we anticipate.
That we need to make, yeah.
So, but, okay, I appreciate that education, and I can see it. Again, if it's a permanent easement, we're not going to be able to access that piece of property. And if we need to make improvements, what kind of improvements are we going to make? And is it to shore up the land? Are we going to have to build a retaining wall so the house doesn't fall in? What improvements are you talking about? And again, if we're not, it's not our fault they built a house on such a tight site, but if we're giving them a permanent easement, and I don't know the topography, the topo of this land, and why we chose to put it there versus where they built it versus in the back. I don't know if it slips down more, but you're splitting the land. So could we have done it in a better location and like towards the rear so that we can have, the city can maintain more of the frontage on Gate City turning into Hackett?
You got to see the house. You got to go see it, Zach, because I'm telling you, there is no.
I understand.
There is no frontage.
Table this.
There is no frontage on that property. I'm telling you, that house is. The land is here. The house is literally.
I understand.
Here. So, we own some of that land. We need to continue to have access. There's no sidewalk, anything right on that side right there.
We will have access.
So we got to make sure we have some access.
I don't disagree. I think my issue with this is accountability and strategy. To Sharon's point, how could this have gone through and not been called prior? That's one thing. The second thing is Sharon shouldn't have to be code compliant. She's not an agent unless there's something that's changed. Third is strategically, we are splitting the land. Is that the best location? Because they already, you can see the driveway on the map that I'm looking at right now. So in an effort to maintain, if the city needs to do sidewalks or if the city needs to do X, Y, and Z, is that the proper location for the easement? And if there's an easement there, I would prefer them apply for the city to contribute the land versus just having a permanent easement. A permanent easement, I don't know the liability, and I would lean on the attorney, but if we're not going to be able to have access to the land, give it to them. And then we have the rest of our property to do whatever we need to do, sidewalks included. So, why do a permanent easement? Permanent is permanent. If it's permanent, give them the land.
Councilmember Thaney, I appreciate your question. The permanent easement simply gives them a surface easement for their driveway to drive in. If we had to improve our sidewalk, if we had to put a water line, if we wanted to do landscaping, so long as we don't interrupt their ability to go from Gate City to their driveway, we still have complete access to that strip of property.
I appreciate that. Oh. However, if we put a sidewalk here, guess what we're going to do? We're going to interrupt their land. They're going to interrupt their driveway. If you put a sidewalk where their driveway is, you will interrupt their driveway. Right.
Sure.
Just give them the land.
If we give them the land and then we want to put a sidewalk in, we then have to eminent domain buy the land back. Whereas
I'll tell you, this is going to end. You will see this again.
I just want to make clear that the permit easement still gives us access to do whatever we need to do, so long as they can use the driveway.
And I will again give Councilwoman Hightower credit for being code compliance and engineering and planning and all TRC, but like, how did this happen and how did we get to this point? What's the strategy and what's the accountability?
It's a good point.
Know, I got to be honest. I'm held accountable every day, 65 times a day, and that's why you're going to hear accountability out of me a lot. Other folks need to be accountable for their mistakes.
Yeah, so I don't disagree that this pointed out sort of a gap, and I'd be happy to share some additional details with you as to how the builder moved forward regardless of inspection. And you're right.
It looks like there's a sidewalk leading up to that. Is there, Sharon? I mean, based on this, Matt, that's just a footpath.
I will say that, and Ms. Cockburn is not here, I don't guess, is she? Well, Hannah, tell me, I think what it revealed is that transportation was not reviewing these plans. And I think this came about, and we talked about it, and transportation, so you've now since put some measures in place to ensure that you review those plans, to see how those driveways are being laid out and all of that.
Correct. When the original TRC plan for the plot plan of the residence was provided, it showed a garage space with a single parking space included in the footprint of the building. It was not constructed to that plan. So we have included an additional step as inspections are occurring during construction to ensure that the plans that are given to us are the plans that are being constructed. We further worked to identify where the appropriate location for the access point is. We actually closed the one that you can see today on an aerial and are moving the agreed upon location further to the east to make it safer for access purposes. And this allows us the most flexibility as we think about the improvements that we're going to make to East Gate City Boulevard, the possibility of future high-quality, high-speed transit in the corridor, to use that property however we may need to while maintaining safe access to finish this house. I hope that helps answer the question.
It does. My concern, now what you just said is we're rewarding bad behavior. It was not built to the TRC specs that it was laid. It wasn't. So since Ms. Cockburn just said we are relocating said driveway to the east, are they paying for and doing that driveway, or is the city putting one penny into moving that south or east?
I'll let Hannah speak to that, but I don't believe we are.
It looks like an
I should have
LLC
been more clear.
owns
We closed the previous curb cut, so but the driveway construction will be at the expense of the property owner and the recipient of the easement.
What do you want to do with this?
No, there's nobody there yet. Grass is growing up the front of the hill.
What do you want to do with this?
So,
Okay. You want a motion on this? Council will vote. Madam Mayor? Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, it passes 7-0. Zach, what are you doing?
Zach was a no.
No. Okay. Okay.
7-1.
Okay, thanks. We have some guests. Mary Kay, would you introduce our guests?
Yes, so normally we start opening like we do with our recognizing our Boy Scout. We also have a group in from Church World Services. Many of our refugee people who come to the United States and have come to assist us, and we assist them. So Church World Services, thank you so much for being here. I believe Ms. Abdelgader would like to say something to council, but I know that is not normally what we do on our business meeting, and I would certainly leave that up to Mayor Pro Tem.
She may say something.
And if she could be very brief, maybe 2 minutes.
1.5.
And this is because they came today and they kind of viewed everything that council does and all of the building, and Mrs. Angie Lord, our city clerk, took them around. So I know they've learned a lot about our building and about what city council and the staff does. So number one, thank you all for being here. Number two, go ahead, Ms. Abdelgader.
Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for allowing us to visit the Greensboro Municipal Government Building today, along with attending the City Council meeting. My name is Yathir Abdelgadir, a longtime resident of Greensboro, and I'm here on behalf of and as part of the Integration Working Group. The IWG in Greensboro, North Carolina.
Would you all stand up, please?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, a lovely group of leaders. Thank you. The IWG in Greensboro, North Carolina is a collaborative team of refugee and immigrant leaders dedicated to building collective power at the service of all. We work to organize and ensure the collective power of newcomers in Greensboro. We represent many different countries, including but not limited to Syria, India, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Sudan, Niger, Afghanistan, and Libya. Each of us brings a unique story, perspective, and strength, and it is through the diversity of our group that we understand and firmly believe in the power of our collective voices. Our visit here today is part of our civic engagement initiatives aimed at ensuring that former and current refugee and immigrant leaders are fully engaged in their life and the life of their communities. We're here to uplift the voices of our communities, ensuring that they are heard by those in power. We believe that when our voices are included in the decision-making process, we strengthen the fabric of our entire community. We firmly believe that together we strive to build a future where every voice matters and where our communities can fully participate in shaping the decisions that impact our lives. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you. Thank you all so much. And I just want to say I've known so many of you for so many years, and just to have you here in the room is just warms my heart, and I'm thrilled that you are doing this and going out and more civic engagement and things like that. So thank you all so much.
Thank you so much. All right, we're at public hearing agenda, and H1, we don't have any speakers on H1, I don't think, no. Is a resolution to close a portion of Ireland Street, Jason Pyle, for Tacoma Asset Trust.
Luke Carter from Planning will do the presentations this evening.
Good evening. My name is Luke Carter. I'm with the City of Greensboro Planning Department, and I'll be introducing the items tonight on behalf of the Planning Department. The first item that we have as a public hearing item is a request to close the street for Ireland Street. It's described as between 1020 and 1100 South Elm Street. It's approximately a 25-foot wide right-of-way, and Jason Pyle of Taconic Asset Trust is the applicant. This is the street closure map that you see. Taconic Asset Trust owns the properties on the north and on the south of the property, of the street. So in closing the street, or in requesting the closure of the street, that's 100% of the landowners along the street that have requested the closure. You see in the aerial photo here, it's a paper street. The street doesn't exist at all. It's just, there's a survey from a long time ago that shows a right-of-way. and they would like to improve the property, and in order to do that, they need to close the street. Sure.
Okay. Is there a second? Okay, it's moved by Councilwoman Hoffman, seconded by Councilwoman Hightower. Will you vote, please? Madam Mayor?
Yes.
And that passes 8-0. Item H2 is a public hearing for an ordinance annexing territory into the corporate limits for the property located at a portion of 5909 Westgate City Boulevard, a .257 acres, Renaissance Church, Gate City, Inc. And item H3 is public hearing for an ordinance for original zoning for a portion of 5909 Westgate City Boulevard, Renaissance Church, Gate City.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Johnson. This is the zoning map of the subject property. The interesting item about this is the property to the south is the conditional district office that you see to the south there. That is property that is currently owned by the church. They came through the city with the annexation request and the original zoning request last year. At that time, the area that you see that's crosshatched was actually a street. That was another paper street. Marion Elsie Drive is a gravel road up until the end, the beginning of where you see the crosshatched area. And so at that time, the city did not have the authority to annex that property. So the church, after the property to the south was annexed, the church went to the county and requested that portion of Marion Elsie to be closed. So once that was done, they got ownership of that property, combined it in with the remainder of their property that's already inside of the city. And so this request is specifically for their portion of that right-of-way that was closed. So the subject property is currently zoned County RS 40. They are requesting the original zoning to City CDO. You'll notice that to the north of the property is zoned, and to the east is County RS 40. South and west of the property are City Conditional District Office. This is the aerial map of the subject property. There's, again, nothing in that area that is proposed to be annexed and originally zoned. North of the request are single-family dwellings. East of the request are single-family dwellings. South of the request is a portion of the new church that's under construction.
Okay, it's been moved in second. Council, please vote. Madam Mayor?
Yes.
That passes 8-0. Moving on to item H4, we have one speaker.
Madam Mayor, excuse me.
Oh, excuse me, H3. I'm switching. Okay.
This also needs findings.
Yeah,
Do you have
can you
to
reference
have
the consistency statement that's in front of you as well? Yeah, thank you. Yes.
I'm getting ready to.
I know she is.
The Greensboro City Council believes that its action to approve the original zoning request for the property at a portion of 5909 Westgate City Boulevard from County RS 40 to City CDO to be consistent with the adopted GSO 2040 Comprehensive Plan, and considers the action taken to be reasonable and in the public interest for the following reasons. The request is consistent with the Comprehensive Plan's future built form map and future land use map. The proposed City CDO zoning district as condition permits uses that fit the context of surrounding area and limits negative impacts on the adjacent properties. The request is reasonable due to the size, physical conditions, and other attributes of the area. It will benefit the property owner and surrounding community, and approval is in the public interest.
Thank you. Council will vote. Madam Mayor? That passes 8-0. All right, H4 is a public hearing for an ordinance annexing territory into the corporate limits for the property located at 1915 and 1915 ZZ Harris Drive and 4924 Old Randleman Road, which is 20.94 acres. Dina Hayes for Guilford County Schools. We do have a speaker on this. I'll come to you. Donna Ball, are you here? Okay, I'm going to read the other one, then you can speak. And item H5 is a public hearing for an ordinance for original zoning for 1915 and 1915 ZZ Harris Drive and 4924 Old Randleman Road. Dina Hayes for Guilford County Schools.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Johnson. This is another annexation and original zoning request. The current zoning on the property is county public and institutional and county RS40. They are requesting an original zoning to city, CD, public and institutional. North of the request is county ag and county RS40. East of the request is county RS40. South of the request is county RS40 and PI. And then west of the request is county ag, county PI, and county RS40. There's currently an elementary school on the property, that's Sumner Elementary School, and this annexation and original zoning would allow them to rebuild the school with access to city utilities.
Okay.
And this is the condition that's proposed by the applicant.
All right, we're going to hear from you, Miss Ball. You could come to this podium.
Thank you very much. I'm Donna Bell with the Guilford County Schools Planning Department. I'm really just here and available for any questions about the rezoning and annexation petitions. So if you have none, then I'll leave it to you all. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Y'all have any questions?
So Donna, you say y'all gonna tear down Sumner and building another one out that way?
We are going to build a full replacement of Sumner Elementary School on the same site. Yes, ma'am.
Great, okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Excellent, thank you. All right, move the item.
Huh?
Move the item. Who moved it? Oh, okay.
Will you second it, Sharon?
Y'all second it.
Okay, council will vote. Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Where's my, oh, okay. There it is.
And that passes 8-0.
Move the item.
We'll need the reference to the consistency statement on the original zoning for this one as well.
Right. The Greensboro City Council believes this action to approve the original zoning request for the property at 1915 and 1915 ZZ Harris Drive and 4924 Old Randleman Road from County PI Public and Institutional and County RS40 Residential Single Family to City CD PI Conditional District Public and Institutional to be consistent with the adopted GSO 2040 Comprehensive Plan and considers the action taken to be reasonable and in the public interest for the following reason. The request is consistent with the Comprehensive Plan Future Built Form Map and Future Land Use Map. The proposed city CDPI zoning district as conditioned permits uses that fit the context of the surrounding area and limits negative impacts on the adjacent properties. The request is reasonable due to the size, physical conditions, and other attributes of the area. It will benefit the property owner and surrounding community, and approval is in the public interest.
Council will vote. Madam Mayor?
Yes.
And that passes 8-0.
This is the time for consideration of the business agenda. Item I-1, resolution approving a change order in the amount of $83,000 to contract 2019-071A with Freycinet Incorporated for the bridge maintenance and repair 2019 to 2020 project. That is to complete some temporary repairs so that the Washington Street and Gorell Street bridges can be opened, correct? That is moved by Councilmember Hoffman. I didn't see. Seconded by Mrs. Thurm.
Third, because I sure want to go that way.
Council, please vote. And that passes 8-0. Item I-2, resolution approving bid in the amount of $9,665,286 and authorizing execution of contract 2024-001 with Blythe Construction Incorporated for the resurfacing of city streets. Moved by Mrs. Hightower.
Second.
Seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Johnson. Council, please vote.
Madam Mayor.
Madam Mayor, I forgot. I'm so sorry. Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Thank
Yes.
you. Jump right in if I do. All right, and that passes, it didn't come up on my screen. 8-0. Thank you.
And it met the goals. Read
met
it.
the goals.
Read it. It met the goals.
All right, moving on to item I-3, resolution approving contract 2022-052A with ASJ Wilson Construction, LLC for $1,198,000 for pool deck repairs at Lindley Community Park.
So I have a
Moved by Mrs. Thurm, seconded by Dr. Wells.
So I have,
I'm sorry, I misheard. And seconded by Dr. Wells.
I have a question.
Yes, Mrs. Hightower.
I just had an MWB question again, and this is an MBE that won the contract. But I was just concerned he didn't meet the goals. And I guess my greater question is, how do you determine when a project can be self-performed? Because there were goals that were set that were relatively high, and he only met 0.2% on each goal, both M, both W. And I guess the explanation is he's self-performing. How is that determined?
In this case, Councilman Hightower, the prime provided a good faith effort, and we reviewed the documentation for the good faith effort. So he achieved enough points the company achieved enough points to move the project forward based on the good faith effort.
Well, the goals were MBE 19.9 and WBE 12.9, and they achieved 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0.54 for an M and 0.48 for the W. And so I guess what I'm asking is, your explanation that I got earlier says he's self-performing, but you have shown where, as you review the contract, that the goal had a high number. There was a high number goal.
Sure. So we set the goals based on the engineering estimate, and I shared that with you. And so the engineering estimate came in, and that was before we had proposals. And then we received the proposal from ASJ Wilson, and he did not, or the company did not meet the goals, and he provided the documentation to show that he reached out to the MWBs and did the necessary steps to achieve his points, to the 50 points to move forward with the good faith effort.
So once he showed the documentation where he reached out and didn't meet the goal, then he said I can self-perform it anyway?
Well, a lot of times with the general contractors, anyway, they have the capability of self-performing the job.
So there's no incentive to meet a goal, because if you don't, you can come back and say, well, I self-perform it. He may very well go out and hire the very same people that we're trying to meet the goal with, if that's the case, as employees possibly, if you're self-performing. I think that's a serious loophole that we need to go back and revisit when we rewrite this new plan, because we do need to rewrite our MWB plan coming up as we make our preparations to become a department and clean some of this up. But that's kind of glaring, because that's a high goal and a low number. And don't get me wrong, ASJ is an M. He's an M, and he's on the advisory committee. So I'm just looking for the efforts, and what is the incentive for them to say, okay, let me try to obtain some of this, because these numbers are horribly low. And I'm not saying he's not a good contractor, does a great job. He works over, he did Peeler, he did the other one. So I know he's going to do a great job, but he met goals on some of those. And this one just seems relatively low. And I'm just concerned about, and it may be the loophole somewhere that we got to close the gap.
Gotcha, and I have the same concern, Councilman Hightower. Anytime that we have an organization that is, doesn't meet the goal and also does the good faith to match, to make the approval for the award. So I agree with you. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Well, we just got to do better. Thank you.
All right, that was moved by
Thank you.
I'm sorry. Councilmember Hoffman, seconded by Councilmember Wells. Council, please vote.
Get the mayor.
And the mayor, your vote, please.
Yes.
Thank you. And that passes 8-0. Moving on to item I-4, and resolution approving a change order to contract 2022-0290 with Mainlining America, LLC, in the amount of $1,152,000. Moved by Mrs. Thurm. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mrs. Johnson. Council, please vote. Mayor Vaughn?
Yes.
Thank you. And that passes 8-0.
No, it doesn't, because I'm getting ready. I'm getting ready to vote no. No, it doesn't. And I'm voting no on principle. 2 years or so ago, during election time, I had a real negative encounter with this company. I think Mr. Wilson remembers, Mr. Borges remembers, and so when you talk about rewarding bad behavior, Zach, this is one where I cannot reward bad behavior. Yes, I got an apology letter from the company, but and I got an explanation today from Mr. Borges. They've done some things, but they didn't have any kind of training. And trying to explain to them the importance of not blocking polling precincts during election time. I was kind of, let's just say my campaign worker got real upset with the way that I was approached and talked to. And yes, they recognize and acknowledge the error made by one of their employees. And they did write me a letter of an apology, and I appreciate that very much. But tonight I just can't reward bad behavior. So hopefully, I just said I appreciate it. I did accept it. I accept it.
Thank you. And that passes 7.
That don't mean I liked what he said to me. No, ma'am, I did not like what he said to me. But I accepted the company's apology.
And that carries 7-1. All right, item I-5, resolution approving bid in the amount of $1,476,448 and authorizing execution of contract 2020-032A with Sam W. Smith Incorporated for the Hamel Road Water Line Replacement Project.
Move the item.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Johnson. Seconded by Mrs. Thurm. Mayor Vaughn.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you. And that passes 8-0.
I need Mr. Matheny's vote, please.
I'm sorry?
This is Himmel Road.
Water line replacement.
To the mayor's point, this area was beat up pretty bad. Mr. Borchers was good to communicate with me. He took my emails, my calls, all the concerns, and now we're going back into the same neighborhood that it took over 2 years to get that other one done. And so there has to be proper communication. We cannot go through what we've gone through. And I'll go back to the word accountability. The people that we hire have to be held accountable. And I get there are some surprises. You know, Green Street is a disaster. It's a war zone out there right now. You know, there are businesses on Green Street. There are homes on Hamel that go, Hamel is right at Sunset. And we've got to handle these things better. And to whoever said things about change orders, I don't mind some change orders, but some of these change orders that go from $11 million to $14 million, you're talking about a 26% increase. Like, we got to hold our folks accountable. I'll also say that communication is lackluster at best. And I'm not talking about Mr. Borchers, but I am talking about street improvements as a representative, and Ms. Hoffman has part of downtown, and Sharon and Dr. Wells. We shouldn't have to constantly, proactively request information on any normal basis from city staff. You know, I've worked with, I don't know, Chris, how many managers I've gone through. And it's always, you communicate with me, don't communicate with anybody else. Well, if you don't want me communicating with anything, and you've never said that, Chris, then don't give me a reason to have to keep asking for information. I've gotten nothing out of GDOT about Green Street until I go back and ask. Sunset Drive, I got to go ask. And Mr. Borchers would try his best to update me, but I've got a lot of people that drive these roads. I got a lot of people that live on these roads. I've represented them now for my 5th term. They're going, once we go into Hamel, get ready, because they're going to come at me and they're going to come at you. We have got to hold our folks accountable, and we've got to hold communication accountable. We are terrible at communication. We shouldn't have to constantly ask. And I'll talk about that more again at a later item. But gosh, just tell us what's going on. Give us a weekly update. Give us a bi-weekly, or, you know, every other week. But, you know, I am not looking forward to this project.
I'd like to make a quick comment.
Yes, go ahead, Mayor.
One thing, Zach, it is a new contractor and a new contract. And I think that they are certainly aware of what happened. So I'm hoping for a much better outcome. But again, I do want to say how much I appreciated staff literally at points going door to door to let people know what was going on. That should not have been on us. That should be on the contractor.
Sorry, we had a little IT problem on there. So has everyone voted?
Mr. Matheny?
The vote screen didn't come up. Correct.
Yes, sir. Okay.
You might have to call for the vote.
Is the vote screen coming?
It says 8.
No, it did. It just did.
8 to 0.
I got one.
I didn't get one.
Yes.
Yes.
All right, and that carries 8 to 0. All right, moving on to item I6, resolution to approve contract 12-12 in the amount of $2,875,000 with CSG Systems Incorporated to provide water bills and notices. Any questions? Moved by Mrs. Thurm. Seconded by Dr. Wells. Council, please vote. Mayor Vaughn?
Yes.
And that passes 8 to 0. Moving on to item I7, resolution approving bid in the amount of $1,998,388 and authorizing execution of contract 2021-0020 with BW Infrastructure LLC for the Stream Bank Stabilization 2021 project. Moved by Mrs. Hightower, seconded by Dr. Wells. Council, please vote.
You have a speaker on 112. You have it.
Thank you.
I don't see him. He might be back there.
And that passes 8 to 0. Item I8, resolution approving a contract in the amount of $7,583,093 with HDR Engineering, Inc. of the Carolinas for professional services for final design services for the Mitchell WTP Advanced Treatment of Emerging Contaminants project. And item I9, ordinance to amend the Water Resources Capital Project Revenue Bond Fund budget to appropriate funding for the Mitchell Water Treatment Plant Emerging Contaminants Design Project in the amount of $7,583,093.
So what this is asking to transfer from the fund the amount we need.
Correct. So item I8, please vote. Mayor Vaughn?
Yes.
Councilmember Hightower?
And that passes 8 to 0. And now item 9. Do I hear a motion? Moved by Mrs. Thurm. Seconded by Dr. Wells. Council, please vote. Mayor Vaughn? Mayor Vaughn? Oops, I lost her.
Yes.
Yes, we have a yes. And let's see. That passes 8 to 0. Item I-10, resolution approving a contract in the amount of $8,635,500 with CDM Smith Incorporated for construction administration and resident project representative services for the Mitchell WTP conventional treatment residuals. And item I-11, ordinance amending Water Resources Capital Project Revenue Bond Fund budget to fund Mitchell Water Treatment Plan construction administration and capital improvements in the amount of $8,635,500.
Second.
On item I-10, that has been moved by Dr. Wells, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Johnson. Council, please vote. someone not voted? Okay, there we go. That passes 8-0. And item I-11. Moved by Mrs. Thurm, seconded by Mrs. Hightower. Council, please vote. Mayor Vaughn?
Yes.
And that passes 8-0. Item I-12, we do have a speaker. Are they on Zoom or in person? Okay, in person.
He's right over by the door.
Okay. Need a motion to open the public hearing? No, we don't need just.
We're opening the public hearing.
You
What's
don't have
going
to
on?
open the public, you can have it speak.
Huh?
Is this item a public hearing?
Yes. No. Oh, it's not.
It's not a public hearing.
general
It's
business.
Business
general
item.
business item.
He can speak on the business item. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yes. So, is someone going to explain what we're doing here, Mr. City Manager?
Yeah.
Sure.
I think we definitely need to explain it.
Sure, I'd be happy to. As you'll recall, we canceled the project with Step Up some months ago as a result of lack of participation and a surety of clawbacks. At that time, you all asked me to look at options for taking possession of the property or getting control of the property so that we could move forward with development. Our team, along with the city attorney's office, worked on those options and seek counsel from you all with regard to how to move forward. The quickest remedy that we had was to reimburse expenses that were provided to us from PHI and then transfer the property back to the city. I believe both Mr. Davis and Ms. McCrae can provide additional answers if you have questions.
You have a speaker.
Do we have a speaker? I thought.
Mr. Marsh has come to speak on this item.
Good afternoon, and thank you for your time. I just had a couple of questions that I was a little fuzzy about. I had saw Mr. Matheny had made a couple of questions about accountability, with regards to this matter and other matters before the city. And, again, this is, if I'm not mistaken, this is under Michelle Kennedy's purview. This was something that she has been a part of from beginning to the end. I think we can say at this moment that if the city is having to buy this property back and we're going to be out additional funds in addition to the money that we gave them as a forgivable loan, which was a sweetheart deal. I've been in business my whole life. I've never gotten a loan that was forgivable. And they still screwed this contract up. And I'm just, my first question is, who does Michelle Kennedy answer to? And at what point do we start analyzing all of these projects that always seem to come to the same conclusion when she is involved? We're not going to speak about items that are not on this agenda, but they all coincide. And again, my question is, who does Michelle Kennedy answer to? Because it seems that she can act with impunity. Things always go wrong. We're always left holding a financial bag. And I mean, it's just ridiculous. And I mean, and this just goes, they kind of paint you, unfortunately, Ms. Thurm, in the newspaper, that you said something incorrect about the price of the asset that we are now trying to take back. But again, I mean, this all is on her lap. And evidently she couldn't be bothered to join us. And again, this is just another mess that we're cleaning up for her. And so again, that's just really my question is, who does Michelle Kennedy answer to? I think we could solve a lot of problems if we answer that question.
The city manager.
Okay, I thought so. I mean, I didn't know there's been a lot of changes in the city manager's office. But yeah, I mean, I understand we're between a rock and a hard place. There are no easy answers with this. We do need to get that asset back and get that moving. As Mr. Matheny said again, we do need to put people in housing. But that just has to be looked at. I mean, that's just what I wanted to say on the record, because I know she's not here. She was here smiling the other nights when the other organizations attacked us. Again, for the record, we don't see 30 people in here talking tonight, because that's not the sexy thing to do. We understand how hard this work is that you all do. But again, like, that's just ridiculous. We're talking real money here. We just have to have accountability. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Marsh.
you, Mr. Marsh.
I believe Mr. Matheny has comments.
Then I would like to after. Zach.
Yeah, I first want to say that I support this move. It's a move that I hate it took 2 years to do, but I'm glad we're doing it. I think it's a strategic play for numerous reasons. One, it's a strategic play to protect the $3.2 million that the taxpayers have in this property. To Mr. Marsh's point, I would have never agreed to a $3.2 million loan with zero default and 0% interest on something like this. We've got to do better. This was a project that's well over 3 years, 4 years that we've been working on, and the previous city manager wrote an op-ed piece talking about all the millions of dollars. I think it was equated to $30 million we've done to help affordable housing, homeless, etc. And they included the $3.2 million that the city loaned for the Regency Inn when it was empty the majority of the time. There's no question that this was an extremely poorly run project from the get-go. Mm-hmm. This is the worst project I've ever seen the city run. And I've been around for 20 years.
100.
Well, easy, girl. And so, one of the things, so from a fiduciary standpoint, there's no question that we need and have to make this play. From a housing standpoint, I think Mr. Davis set us a timeline, and I will tell you that it sets it out through December. I know I've talked about the Regency Inn about every meeting in the last 2 years. I'll hold my breath on it, hoping that we close. This was a much smarter play than the Summit Avenue. But I'm also going to hold accountable this team to follow the timeline that was set forth. I think it needs to be a much better team effort than to have one department go out and try to hand select one development partner. Mm-hmm. That's not a good idea. We shut who knows out. We could have probably had housing on this site today. The pallet homes. We chose the only handicap field in the city of Greensboro to put pallet homes. Yet we owned this property that has what? Water, sewer, and electricity. But we chose the handicap baseball stadium. And I'm all for, let's buy more pallet homes at this point. I'm just talking about location. I'm talking about strategy. I'm talking about vision. I'm talking about what we are doing and holding ourselves and you as our staff accountable. Again, I'm totally for this. But who's negotiating these deals for us? Who's negotiating on our behalf? Because I got to tell you, To pay $1 million for half an acre on Summit Avenue makes absolutely no sense. We bought that property 2 days after it caught fire. Who is doing this? Who is acting on our behalf that our backs get against the wall to have to make these decisions and drag it out? Who negotiates on city council's behalf? Because I doubt anybody up here really wants to accept some of the deals that we get put forth. We're failing. I've said it before. We finally got this one. It took 2 years too long. This is the right play. Now let's don't mess it up. Let's follow the timeline. Let's reach out to everybody. Let's don't hand select. There are more developers than just people that live in the city of Greensboro that do this. Let's spread the net wide and make it happen. And I would also say, I believe Ms. Hightower and I mentioned John Demery Way at this point well over a year ago. There are 22 two-bedroom homes that are yet to be occupied.
No, but there has been an RFP process ran, and there has been someone selected. John Demery is going to move. It is going to move. That is, but to your point, it took forever.
Forever.
But it is finally, I hope, let me just say this. There was an RFP, then a selection process, and that has been reviewed, and I think, Ms. McCray, we're on the final stages of...
That's correct. That'll be before you all next month.
I'm glad to hear.
Sorry, go ahead.
I'm glad to hear. I still don't think we're achieving what needs to be achieved. We drag our feet. We take too long. We're not strategic. You know, we talk about our strategic plan, and I hear people, you know, that come up here and say, this meets your strategic plan. We may have a strategic plan, and it's here at the top, but it is not going down to the folks that actually make things happen. And those are not necessarily the department heads. It's beyond that. And so, you know, I'm certainly supportive of this. We've got to make sure that we follow timelines. We've got to push, Ms. McCray, if John Demery's in your lap. We've got to push that RFP. We've got to get them while we can. We've got to do everything we can. You know, to the item earlier, G2, to that planning, it just seems like we're just throwing mud against the wall and hoping something sticks instead of having actually a mission, a vision, and a strategy to implement. For us to just buy Summit Executive, that was the weirdest. That was weird to spend $950,000 on a property that damn near burned down. That's only because I've got a great fire department. Well, apples and apples, downtown Greensboro property goes for $1 million an acre. We spent $1 million on a half an acre on a corridor that is not valued at the same. That, hold on. Property should have been condemned. We got no strategy. So what I'm asking for is strategy, a mission, and implementation. And I am extremely concerned about the way this project's been handled. I still say, Nasha, thank you for getting John Demery under the way, but we owned that property for 7 years. I mean, if we didn't bring it up, it would still be sitting empty. Well, actually, it is sitting empty, but hopefully it'll be rehabilitated sooner rather than later. And there's other projects like that we can talk about. And I do go back to communication is key. My wife used to tell me that. Communication is key in any relationship, in particular personal and business. So, You know, we're talking about things. I think we're getting there as a body, as a council, quite frankly. I mean, we've had tough discussions that related to unsheltered. We've had tough discussions related to numerous things. I look forward to getting this one over the finish line and actually seeing those buildings gone and something positive happen on this location. And hopefully we won't have to continue to go down the line and take 2 years to make a decision we should have done 2 years ago, or quite frankly, we should have just bought the property instead of give a 0% no default loan and had the property under our control and then hired a third-party manager to manage it versus giving a loan. The city should not be in the business of loaning money. We're not a bank. We're a city. And that was a wrong move to begin with. So let's get this one right now.
So, Mr. Matheny, I 100% agree with you.
It's going to rain tonight.
It is. It's a dark day in heaven, but I mean, it's the truth. And I'm with you, Mr. Marsh. I totally understand what you're saying. You're not wrong. I'm going to support it because we need to get control of it.
Yes, we do.
We need control because this has gone on too long. I was not a fan when this came before us 4 or 5 years ago. I was not supportive because I said, if you don't own it, you cannot control it. And we have never controlled this process. It's been all over the map. And what I said to Mr. City Manager was I really didn't want to support it, but I know we needed to clean it up. But we are horrible stewards of property we acquire. Horrible. We do not do a good job of acquiring other property and making sure it moves forward. Even with the properties that we have, John Demery, longer than 7 years. I've been here 10, and I've been talking about it. So, and it was before that. So it's been in the community 20-some years, okay? Redevelopment lots, been vacant 20, 30, 40 years in communities that need housing, but yet they aren't moving. So I hear what you're saying, and I totally, again, agree with you. But what I've said is that moving forward, as we acquire property, we need to have a plan of action. I said this a few years ago, 2.5 to be exact, when I went along with $500,000 for demoing houses, and I said, put a plan with it. I ain't seen a plan yet. Yet. Because you're knocking them down, but you're not replacing them. And I said, give us a plan. So the one good caveat, Mr. Matheny, about redevelopment is if you put it under and house it under redevelopment, then you can attach a plan to it, a specific plan to it. So when people come and want to acquire property, they have to come not just with some willy-nilly, oh, let's do this, but with a sure enough plan that they have invested some of their money for a plan, a design, and adhering to our guidelines. This property should have already been developed. Housing is a need. Homeless housing is a need. Housing, period, is just a need. But we don't do that, and I talked to you today about that, Mr. Davis. We've got to be more proactive about this and letting people know. But we can't keep on running out here just buying stuff and no plan for it. We think we might have a plan. We think it might be a good idea, and we got a few dollars, so let's spend the CDBG money. We could spend that money in a more responsible fashion around this. I am concerned about this, that now we're getting it back. We got to pay money to get it back. We didn't get any money while we was out there. It served a purpose for 2 years, but for 2 years it wasn't open. So I'm hoping that the timeline is adhered to and that you can come back to us sooner than later than what the timeline proposes, to say, hey, we've pulled this together, we've put an RFQ with it, RFP with it, and then we're soliciting and get some good partners. Because that last fiasco, that was not, I don't know what that occurred. But it didn't just occur to us. It occurred to Winston and Nashville. And so it occurred across the state. It wasn't us, but we can't afford to be on the losing end anymore. We cannot. And spending money that we're just throwing money out the window and not getting good return on investment.
Thank
so
you.
hopefully this will go forth.
Thank you, Mrs. Hightower. Mayor Vaughn?
Thank you, and I'll try to be brief and not beat it to death. I am not going to support this item, not because I don't want to get the property back, because there's been a phrase a couple times tonight that rewarding bad behavior, and I believe that paying additional money is rewarding bad behavior. When we bought that property, I believe it closed for $2.75 million. The balance of that was management fees and setting up a checking account. And I think council will remember I sent PHI a very detailed email asking for questions, what happened with the balance of that money. And I never received a reasonable explanation except a diatribe on how I was picking on them. I think the taxpayers deserve to know how that money was spent. When that property was first bought, people could stay there. It was open for 2 winters. And Zach, I want to say at one point, maybe both the pallet shelters and the Regency was being used. So in the wintertime, we were actually able to double that capacity. Now, the property has to be taken down because it was not secured properly. I believe there is finally a fence. So when we talk about accountability flows both ways. And in this project, I do understand that they did not get the money they had hoped for from the county. And I think obviously had trouble trying to get that project over the finish line. I think staff located Step Up to try to make it happen. I do want to point out that this passed unanimously. Now, it was the last council. Zach was not on that council, but it passed unanimously. There was a lot of discussion around what is permanent supportive housing and how are we going to move forward with it. And when you talk to anybody who is in the affordable housing community, they'll tell you that that permanent supportive housing is the way to go. It is the 2 things that HUD stands firmly behind. Yes, I agree. This project has been awful. We have not found good partners. I hope that that will change. It is regretful that we are now paying additional money to get a property back in worse shape than it was when we bought it. I have a real problem with that. Zach, you can go on and talk about Summit all you want. Well, this is just as bad, that we are being forced into a corner to pay more money to get a substandard building back that we can't use this winter. I agree that we have to move forward in order to get control of that property. Foreclosure would take more time and legal fees, so this is a shortcut. Our back is against the wall, but out of principle, I can't support the additional money.
Thank you, Mayor Vaughn. Anyone else? All right, that has been moved by Councilmember Thurm, seconded by Councilmember Wells. Council, please vote. Mayor Vaughn?
No.
Mayor Vaughn is a no.
That was a big loud no, too.
And that passes 7-1 with 1 no. Thank you. All right, moving on to item I-13, ordinance amending Chapter 2 of the Greensboro Code of Ordinances with respect to boards and commissions for the establishment of the Civil Service Board. Mr. Davis? Yes, I was going to see Mr. Davis.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Council members, we issued sent an email a few weeks back regarding the Civil Service Board and the establishment of the board. This initial ordinance is just to establish the board itself. There are a few more components to go. I think we outlined a timeline that indicate that we're on pace to establish the board by the first of the year. There are a few things that we have to put in place to include establishing the members of the board. We are in the process right now, and our clerk has done a tremendous job of helping us coordinate those efforts, also coordinating with the two departments that will be impacted by the board, which are the fire department and the police department. Once we identify the persons that have been nominated and selected, then we will continue to move forward. But as we move through, we will provide updates and information to the council. If there are any questions, I can address any questions that you might have. Also, legal has been an integral part of making sure that this moves along as the legislation has said.
Thank you. And I also wanted to state, City Council is currently accepting nomination for the council's appointment to the upcoming Civil Service Board. Residents may nominate a potential member by visiting the city website at www.greensboro-nc.gov, select government, and click on boards and commissions to complete a nomination form, and nominations must be submitted by the end of August. So that helps with that. So,
Mayor Kay, that is on that website. Is there a description on what attributes that individuals should possess?
Yes, ma'am, it is, and we can get all those to you. There are a few, for example, there are some very specific items, such as how long it has been since the person was either working with the city or any relation to any person to the city. We defined out what a relationship to an individual would be, but all of the information that we've disseminated provides that information, so that as people may express interest, or if if the council may engage anyone, that information is readily available. But I can resend that to you, make sure you have it all.
great, thank you. Anyone else? Do I hear a motion? Oops. I'm sorry.
Just for clarity's sake,
Mr. Watts?
I just want to make a comment just for clarity's sake. This really is adopting a set of rules related to voting and the selection of members. The legislature passed an amendment to our charter, and that actually established the body. Just to be clear.
Great. The Civil Service Board was established by the state? Yeah.
I just want to be clear that the title is a little misleading because it says that it establishes we don't have the authority to amend what the legislature does. And I don't want the record to suggest that we think we are somehow amending what the legislature does.
So I understood that it was just mentioning this to amend Chapter 2 because we are adding a board or commission, correct?
Well, no, it's already been added. So you'll notice we're adding a Division 2 to the provision, and
Right.
this talks about voting rules for a civil service board.
Right.
That's all this is.
Got it.
The board's already in existence.
Correct.
Okay. So your resolution is inaccurate? Is that what you're saying? And the verbiage should be changed?
With legal documents and when the titles and so forth are not really highly regarded, the substance is what you really focus on. And so I think the title's fine. But to be clear, the amendment is to add Division 2, and Division 2 is the voting procedure.
Got it. Add the voting procedure.
So if we all voted against this, what does that mean?
We can't.
It means you'd still have a board,
You just would not have a voting procedure.
So you just don't
And
don't do anything about it.
Well, no, the legislature directed us to follow through on this.
So are you saying if we don't vote to put voting processes in place, we have none? So would the state add them? They already done told us what to do anyway with this, so what?
I'm reminded of the song. No, I won't go there.
You can sing it, but I want to know.
Well, the legislature has authority to decide how to deal with it if we weren't to follow through. You know, the phrase, don't tug on Superman's cape. I would avoid not going forward with this. I think it's the right, you know, we've been given discretion as to how to set up the voting rules. And that's what we're presenting to you now.
So to me, this means that the one person that City Council will be appointing to that board, this is what we have to do here, correct? And accept the nominations. Right. So that's correct.
Pardon me, Councilmember Bozer-Wader. I believe Madam Mayor would like to speak.
Oh, sure, I'm sorry. Madam Mayor?
No, thank you. I just was going to say, I think what the city attorney was saying, one, we're instructed by the legislature that we have to do this. And we really need to go ahead and do it. We want to keep our relationship with the legislature intact. We saw what they did to our neighbors to the north. We have been very successful getting requests filled that we've asked the legislature for. And I think we need to move ahead with this.
Great, thank you. Anyone else? Moved by Mrs. Thurm. Do I hear a second? Seconded by Mrs. Hoffman. Council, please vote.
Can I recuse myself?
No.
No.
Mayor Vaughn?
Yes.
What'd you say, Goldie?
Something the government is putting on us.
My stomach, I just can't, I just think it's awful. I can vote no, can I not? Thank you very much. Government's going to change anyway.
And that passes 7-1. Thank you. Moving on to boards and commissions list for today. If there are any Board of Adjustment appointments, we really need them made because they have a meeting on Monday. So if anyone has anyone for that. Board of Adjustment? Yeah. To attend. Okay. Okay, do you have any other appointments, Ms. Hoffman?
Second.
I'm sorry, I could not hear that.
Rebecca Buffington to the CVB board.
All right, Mrs. Thurm?
I'd like to reappoint Tim Peters to the CVB board. Do we need to vote on yours first? Yes. We need to vote on
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, vote on Mrs. Hoffman's appointment.
I'll second it.
Second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, Mrs. Thurm?
Tim Peters, reappoint to the CVB.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Johnson. Council, what is your pleasure to vote? Aye.
Aye.
That passes unanimously. Dr. Wells?
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnson?
No, I did McKinney last time.
All right, I do have one. I'd like to reappoint Chidi Aquari to the War Memorial Commission.
Second.
All right. All in favor? Please say aye. And that passes unanimously. Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Matheny? None. And Mrs. Hightower?
I will have some next week, but I do have a question. And so maybe Q or somebody can tell me, what is the CVB board comprised of? Because I have never appointed anyone. And so I want to know, because then there's not been a representative from my area on the CVB. So what is it comprised of?
instance, there's a representative of hotels, 200 rooms or more. There's a restaurant representative. There is a, Ms. Buffington, whom I appointed tonight, is the Arts Council representative. There is a slot for a hotel with no meeting rooms. So the positions on that board are designated. It's not like any of the other boards and commissions in our city.
So I would like to see the whole list of how that is, because I have folk that live on my side of town too. Maybe they're not a hotel owner, but they're restaurants and stuff like that. So that's how we wind up eliminating people, because what we do is then we set out specific guidelines that I think leave certain people out. And there's an inclination to say, well, there's nobody. You know, Historic Preservation Board has some of that and category, and I understand why they do. But I was when I appointed someone to that board, they said, "Oh, but we've got to have an architect." And I said, "So we don't have architects?" And I put one on with 2 masters in the architect field. So you can't say there aren't people out there. We just have to know what those requirements are. And then, because I've never appointed anybody there, so I don't even know what kind of representation we get. And I know there is somebody that's...
The CDB functions differently from most of our other boards and commissions, but I'll get you that.
If you would, I would appreciate it. Thank you very much.
And Councilmember Hightower and Councilmember Hoffman, I would be happy to send those guidelines and that information to you as well.
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you.
All right. You didn't have any, correct, Sharon?
No, I'll have some next.
So let's move on to council comments. Mrs. Hightower first.
Okay, well, thank you very much. What's the day? Today is August 20th. Okay. I'm trying to make sure I hadn't been to, I was at the Day of Dignity event at the W.D. Muhammad Center, was the 17th. They had a great turnout. They serviced a lot of young people back to school. It was a great event, and they are going to be having a coat giveaway, I think, in the month of October. And so I was there. And then I had about 2 other back to school. So there's a lot of back to school events that are helping our young people get prepared and ready for their educational year this year. So that was exciting. I want to ask a question, and if I guess staff can get back to me. I sent Chris an email today because we've had this disparity study out here for a while, and we've gotten our recommendations back. We're going to talk about that. But I also want us to focus on goals on professional services, because it bothered me that tonight we had several professional services, and the standard caveat answer is, oh, but we don't put goals on professional services. However, Griffin and Strong has instructed us, but we have not utilized it. And then I wanted to know, when is the on-call position open? Because I think we're missing some opportunity there. So if you can find that out for me, Chris, so we can talk about that the next time we get together. And I think that's it. I've been somewhere else, and I can't remember where I've been. Well, I just can't remember. It's a lot going on in the community. So,
Great, thank you. Mr. Mathaney?
I had the most interesting thing happen to me a couple weeks ago. I dropped my phone about 12 inches, and it cracked. It had a white screen with a white line on it. So if anybody tried to text me over those 2 weeks or call me, I got nothing.
Oh, we got weird.
So it was fun being absolutely off the grid for 2 weeks. And
Staff probably appreciates that too.
They were singing hallelujah in the corridor.
That was short. Okay. Mayor Pro Tem Johnson?
Nothing.
Dr. Wells?
I didn't remind Sharon, Councilwoman Hightower, but we both went to the ribbon cutting for the
Infopros.
Yes. Kevin Cooper and his partner opened that facility, and they manufacture big projects for companies, and they build it all here in the plant, and then they just take it to the place all over the country. So they're the only ones that are doing that I think in the country. So that's a bright spot and it's minority owned. So we were proud to be there last week. And I'd like to invite you to the unveiling of a mural on Thursday night in Old Ashboro at 7:45. So come out and see the other mural that will be in East Greensboro.
Mrs. Thurm?
Yeah, first of all, I just want to address something that Zach referenced earlier tonight and say that from my perspective, we've had some really good work sessions lately that were very much worth attending and worth showing up for. So I thank staff for those. I also want to give a big shout out to Metro 911, GPD, GFD, solid waste and water departments. The storm was not quite what we anticipated with the hurricane coming in. However, the night afterwards in my district was a huge problem. We had 6 inches of rain in about an hour. We had a number of people lose their homes and are displaced. We've had people with extreme house damage. And I have to say, from police and fire rescuing people in boats that evening to Griffin getting the boom trucks out to pick up the rugs and the furniture and everything out of people's yards. Today, the water department, Mike, thank you for bringing folks from the water department to meet with people whose houses were flooded. It's only taken me one phone call to either Chris or Mike or whoever, and boy, they have been Johnny on the spot to respond to our residents that were in trouble. And I just want to thank them because we got an email today of not only did our solid waste folks come with the boom truck, but there was a lady that couldn't move the furniture to the road to get out, and they went the extra mile to help her, and probably legally, I don't know whether they should have or not, but it was great customer service, and I really appreciate everything that's been done in the past few days for the folks that suffered such horrendous losses on Saturday night. So thank you.
And before you, Nancy, may I ask, is the drought over? Is the drought over? Okay. Thank you, Nancy.
Yes.
You got your mic on?
Yeah, I can't hear who is ever speaking.
Mary Kay and I yesterday attended a 2-hour presentation by Duke Energy. It was fascinating and really very educational. It's just one of the best things that I've attended in a while. But the meteorologists for Duke Energy are forecasting a warm winter, so that will be good, for our field services department and others within the city, if indeed that's the case. We often just hear the horror stories from time to time about as a city or city employees not reacting to something. I got an email from a lady living in District 4. She and her husband are senior citizens, and she was concerned that her water bill had escalated drastically, and she thought this was due to the increase in our water fees. I knew immediately it wasn't, but I sent it to Mike, who called me right away, and indeed it was probably coming from a leaky toilet, and so our staff is in touch with her about how to handle that and how we can be helpful. So, I think we have city staff who just do that every day, and it's we just sometimes just don't know about it. We only hear the horror stories. The only other thing I'd like to mention is this will be the 10th anniversary of the North Carolina Folk Festival. It will be in downtown Greensboro, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, the weekend following Labor Day. So that's September 6, 7, and 8. Let me tell you, this is going to be this is the best lineup of talent we have ever had. If our citizens if they had to go out and buy tickets to hear the 3 headliners or any of the other talent, Friday night, Saturday night, and Sunday. We have 3 headliners, Friday night, Saturday night, and closing with MIPSO, which is a local North Carolina group, but with international recognition. So please, I encourage our citizens to come downtown. It's a family event. There's so many additional things, other things in addition to the music, but the music is just going to be fantastic. So please come and enjoy. It's a free event. We create a fundraising committee, which I'm a part of, to raise the money privately and publicly. The City of Greensboro is very supportive of this in terms of in-kind, as well as our $75,000 contribution to the festival. The state of North Carolina as well, so we're hoping that they work through their budget sooner rather than later, so that we will see that. Also, the county makes a contribution to the Folk Festival, $30,000 this year. So this is free. It's a terrific event. I hope we'll see 150, 160, 170,000 people in downtown Greensboro that weekend.
Great, thank you. Mayor Vaughn?
Just 2 quick things. First, I want to thank all of our staff for the storm preparation work that they did. They are out there days in advance once we get the weather forecasts, and it's not only field ops, it's water and sewer, it's parks and rec, it's all hands on deck. And I think it's important to recognize that some of the flooding really was mitigated this year due to the hard work of our employees in the day leading up to the event. That Friday night rain really was stunning, especially in West Greensboro, how intense it was. That was something I don't know that anybody could have prepared for. So I just wanted to make sure that staff realizes not only how much we appreciate them, but that our residents appreciate them as well. And secondly, I just have to say it is definitely a full moon.
Definitely. It sure is. It sure is. Thank you, Mayor. So I do have a few comments, but first I wondered if Mr. Davis could give us just a very brief update on the storm preparedness and then what happened the next day and all of the staff involved.
I'll need council to have my back after I make this comment. And this is a little bit out of turn, but I think it's appropriate. Oftentimes people get in their careers and they find themselves in a place that they just assign tasks to everybody else. But I want to give a huge thanks to Chris Wilson, who is our interim manager, who takes on more duties than most people can imagine. I'm sure you all know how many duties he takes on. But I first have to say that when we even knew the storm was coming, he was up at 4 a.m. waking me up in the morning. We have renamed him Chris Cantori, and Carla Banks did not know she had an emergency radio, but he showed her where it was and how to charge it. But I just got to tell you, his leadership is second to none, and he was right in there in the mix with everybody, and I appreciate him, and we all appreciate what he's done through the whole thing, so thank you.
Thank you, Chris. My few comments will be pretty short. once again, the Duke Energy Storm Preparedness and Resiliency class, funny that it was scheduled for, it was rescheduled and scheduled for right after the hurricane. And all of the staff, and especially, I know we always think of public safety, but we also, in public safety, need to think about our telecommunicators who are answering those calls. Because I think within like a 2-hour span on Friday night, it was just a phenomenal number of phone calls they received. And, they're the first responder before the first responders go out. So please think of them and the hard work they have. I know National Night Out. I know that most everyone went out on that. Amazing as usual. Yeah, most of us were out there. I think Goldie gets the prize for maybe going to the most places. I'm not sure.
She was hungry.
10, okay. Maybe someone made more, but no, I made 9, I think. So that was as far as I got. But I do want to give a shout out to the police department for coordinating having National Night Out at the police plaza as well. And that's for neighborhoods that maybe can't get organized, or, their neighborhood doesn't get involved in things like that, or, you can never tell. Some of them delayed them for a couple of weeks. So it was fascinating to see all the city departments. The fire safety trailer was there. There were games for the kids. There was just so much good going on. Several back-to-school drives. And I want to send sympathy to the Hanhan family on the loss of their mother. Issa, Emily, and Omar Hanhan, the Jerusalem Market. Their father, Saliba, passed away last year. Their mother passed away the other evening. So sympathies to them. And that's all I have. Mr. City Manager.
I do have one more quick thing that I did forget.
She forgot.
Congratulations to Dudley High School on their new scoreboard. They have a very professional electronic scoreboard that they unveiled on Saturday in the heat at 4 o'clock, but it was great. But you were able to see it from all across. It's electronic. It does all kinds. I wish I'd have brought a picture, but it's certainly an accomplishment.
They did arrest that person that did that shooting down there.
Yes, ma'am.
I thought I read that.
Mm-hmm. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr.
I forgot that there's going to be a food and clothes and back to school giveaway at Wells Memorial on Saturday morning.
Great, thank you. Mr. Interim City Manager.
Thank you. I'll be brief. First, I want to say thank you to our team. I hear you loud and clear. I will do my very best to make sure that I continue to try and tackle some of these things that are maybe long-standing issues, but our team has done a phenomenal job of trying to wrap those up, and we will continue to try to communicate. A lot of the accomplishments we have is as a result of working with you all and working together, and I hope that we'll continue to do that. Look for the bi-weekly this week. It will be chock full of information, I promise you. But with that being said, I just wanted to say I appreciate moving forward tonight and your support.
Thank you. Mr. City Attorney.
I won't keep you. I do want to say, though, that I've been away for a couple of weeks, and I was really glad to get back to work and excited to move forward.
Great, thank you. Do I? Motion to adjourn by Mr. Matheny. That is undebatable. Second. Thank you all very much.